All right, I'm about to show you something that may seem unrelated to the topic of this video, but trust me, it'll make sense in a second.
Thank you so much. You just have no idea how warming and how generous that welcome is, your love is, your affection, and I'm gratified by it.
In 2004, John Kerry stood on a stage and conceded the presidential race to George W. Bush. This was a cataclysmic shock to everyone. The polls had predicted an overwhelming Kerry victory. Voters were clearly unhappy with the ongoing war and the lagging economy. The Democrats were united as anti-Bush, but never really offered an alternative. When Kerry lost, Democrats sensed voters had rejected not just the candidate, but the party itself.
I did my best to express my vision and my hopes for America.
An era of introspection began. What went so very wrong? It seemed no one represented the party, and the party felt like it represented no one. Sound familiar to anyone? Listen, I've been really on the fence about making this. I've never made a video this political in nature before, but if you've been watching my recent stuff, you'll know we've been tackling a lot of big questions that require big solutions. I wanted to make a whole video on how we get to implementing those solutions, and like it or not, it requires government. More specifically, it requires government led by a party that wants to put the policies that will make these changes go into effect. I haven't seen the party currently in power signal that they're gonna make the specific changes the way I think they should be done, so this video is gonna focus on the other party, the Democratic Party. Things seem to be going pretty chaotic internally over there, and it feels like right now is the moment to figure out what it will represent going forward, not just to the next election, but over the next several decades. So if you'll give me the chance, please hear out what this video has to say. I don't have a partisan agenda, and as the view counts on my last couple videos should show, I don't have some team or organization behind the scenes peddling some ulterior motive. I'm just trying to advocate for change in the way I think is most effective for the better future I want all of us to have access to. So anyway, let's get back to it, because I gotta put that political science degree I got to work somehow. All right, where were we? Right. The Democrat Party today is at a crossroads. The latest opinion polls show the party with an abysmal approval rating, even as the president gets less and less popular. The 2024 election was close. Donald Trump won the popular vote by a smaller margin than Hillary Clinton won it by in 2016, yet the country seems to believe he won a sweeping mandate, and it feels like no one is arguing against it. What happened to the opposition party? There's clearly a hunger for it. Bernie Sanders' fighting oligarchy rallies are filling up stadiums across the country, and yet no one person has stepped up to represent this anger. Last I checked, the country operates under a two-party system. So what happens when one of these parties goes dark? And how did it happen? After all, 4 years after the Bush-Kerry debacle, Democrats won the 2008 election in a landslide, with Barack Obama beating John McCain by 10 million votes and entering the White House with massive congressional majorities at his back. This isn't a question I want to frame in this political moment alone. At the top of Donald Trump's second term, I think it's lazy and short-sighted. The answers we'll come to would be reactionary, and they won't age well. And to be honest, I would like this video to have ad revenue with some longevity. After all, the problems people have with this party go way deeper and span way longer. The causes stretch back much further than 2024, and the solutions need to be implemented past 2028. So let's start by looking back, way back, for some of us. 2004.
I promise you, that time will come. The time will come, the election will come, when your work and your ballots will change the world, and it's worth fighting for.
The Democratic Party of the early 2000s was going through something very similar to what it's experiencing today. After the disastrous 2004 election, the party was completely adrift. John Kerry, the Democratic nominee, had been marketed as the safe bet. He was a military veteran who could neutralize Republican attacks on national security while still appealing to moderates. But his campaign lacked energy. Many at the time claimed that his message against Bush was muddled. And despite the unpopular war and a deeply polarizing incumbent, Democrats failed to connect. And I mean, it's not like he was running against Reagan or anything, it was Bush.
It's fooled me once. Shame on you. It fooled me, we can't get fooled again.
In the aftermath, the party turned inward. People started to ask what the Democrats were actually offering. It was clear to everyone that it was time to experiment with new strategies, reorganized leadership, and a different way of looking at the game. One of the first conversations that took place was about how culturally progressive Democrats were willing to go. In the 2004 election, 11 states had ballot initiatives to ban same-sex marriage, including Ohio, Michigan, Oregon, and Arkansas. These measures were mostly constitutional amendments defining marriage as between a man and a woman. They passed in all 11 states, by large margins in most cases. The idea was that by putting these emotionally charged cultural issues on the ballot, it would mobilize conservative voters who might not otherwise turn out, especially in these battleground states like Ohio, which ended up deciding the election. Some Democratic strategists blamed the loss on values voters, people who were motivated by opposition to gay marriage, abortion, and general cultural liberalism, but not much else. There was a belief that the Bush campaign intentionally used these initiatives to turn out their base, essentially waging a culture war to distract from Iraq and the economy. This led Democrats to question their alignment with socially progressive issues, particularly gay rights in swing states. But there were still a ton of prominent voices in the party that didn't think shifting to the right on the issue was the right way to go. They argue that leaning towards the center on a whole host of issues wouldn't solve their problems, it would just make people vote Republican. The second strategy was to ask people to like and subscribe to the channel, but that never works. The other major strategy seen at the time was Howard Dean's appointment as the DNC chair. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably wondering, who was this guy? This may jog your memory.
And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House!
So Dean, whose own presidential run collapsed after the infamous Dean Scream, launched the 50-state strategy. So this guy, who was, I kid you not, one of the major nominees for the Democratic nomination in 2004 before that scream, launched the 50-state strategy once he became the head of the party. Now, to help explain what this is, I'm going to show you this picture. It may not seem related, but trust me, it is. You may have seen this picture, or some version of it at some point. It got super popular after the 2004 election. It's a map that depicted the Democratic United States of Canada as existing along the coasts, and a Republican Jesus land that encompassed the vast majority of land in the US. This 50-state strategy aimed to fix that. It was a super interesting plan and a total gamble. Instead of focusing on swing states, the idea was to build local party infrastructure everywhere, recruit candidates in red districts, fund organizers in places the party had ignored. It signaled a shift away from pure electoral math, like just getting past the 270 vote threshold for president, and toward long-term momentum building in states like Iowa, Missouri, and Indiana. And this actually worked. Surprisingly well. Democrats started to win back state legislatures. They took the House and the Senate in 2006. The party looked like it actually had a shot at power again, but it still lacked a clear story. And that story wouldn't arrive until a young senator from Illinois came into the picture. Now, Barack Obama's 2008 campaign has begun to be talked about in certain circles as kind of mythic, and there's good reason for it. It was the best performance for the Democrats in the 21st century, by far. But there's important aspects that have faded with history. The campaign had an anger to it. They were angry at the system, angry at the lack of change, angry at the establishment, and it fueled him to the presidency. Was he in support of gay marriage? He claimed he was against it, but he didn't focus on it. He found the issues he and the party could win on, and made the narrative about them. The campaign was able to build a grassroots-powered coalition that shattered turnout records and made politics feel emotionally resonant again. It seemed for a moment like the Democratic Party had found its future. New candidates who followed the strategy became known as part of the Obama coalition, but clearly that future didn't last. Why not? Thanks to that 50-state strategy, Obama came into office with huge majorities in Congress. At a point early in his term, the Democrats had 60 seats in the Senate, a majority that meant they could get past the filibuster, the largest hurdle in American lawmaking. Just so you know how big of a deal that was, the last time a party held that many seats was 1979, and there hasn't been another example since. Because of these huge majorities, he passed the 2008 stimulus bill, the Affordable Care Act, banking reform, and rescued the auto industry from the financial crisis. But the price of those victories was compromise. The Affordable Care Act lost the public option, and many progressives felt shut out. This is where the term political capital is useful. Think of it like a currency. When a politician is most popular, like usually right after they win an election, they have a huge amount of political capital. Anything they do at this point will piss someone off, so they have to spend some of that goodwill to get anything done. This is why you see new presidents doing so much right when they get elected, and then slowing down and getting less popular as time goes on. They got political capital, and they spent it. Obama spent a lot of his passing the Affordable Care Act, and then the bill came due in 2010. The 2010 midterms delivered what Obama called
A shellacking.
Republicans took the House and started blocking the Obama administration from passing more bills. This period has a bunch of fun, whimsical names, including the gridlock years, the age of no, and the do-nothing Congress. Democrats were on defense pretty much the rest of Obama's time in office, as Democrats never regained Congress entirely. The energy of 2008 was effectively evaporated. The political capital was spent. This is where the party started getting stuck. They didn't have the power to deliver on their promises, and when elections came up, they were always on defense. On top of this, Obama's coalition didn't stick around. Democrats started fighting with each other over the future of the party, and the base didn't show up for the midterm elections. Because of this, big policy ideas had to be trimmed down to budget-neutral proposals. And the more nothing happened, the less people trusted them to be in power at all. Movements at the time like Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, and the Sunrise Movement showed people were still irritated with the lack of progress in Washington. But the party couldn't put together a pitch to get voters to give them more powers in Congress. Instead, it often sidelined or absorbed these movements without actually shifting its core ideology. By the time Hillary Clinton ran in 2016, the party's message was clear: stay the course. But the electorate didn't want that. Donald Trump, for all of his chaos, at least sounded like he recognized something needed to change. Clinton offered continuity, and in turn, Trump offered change. If you were paying attention at the time, it was clear people still wanted change. But this drift in the party continued post-Trump. Democrats regained power in 2020, but with much slimmer margins than before. That seemed more like a rejection of Trump than an endorsement of a bold Democratic agenda. The Democratic primary that year was a chaotic mess of candidates with vastly different ideologies and ideas for the future of the party. Biden was the compromise candidate, selected solely on his moderate appeal's ability to get Donald Trump out of office. He was not Obama. And once in office, this trend of staying the course continued within the Democratic Party, as seen in now President Biden's own comment to donors that, quote, nothing would fundamentally change. It felt like the party had given up before the fight even started. And then in 2024, well, you know the rest. So that's how the Democrats got here. Now let's talk about the fun part, the future. As a licensed political scientist, I'm gonna prescribe two fixes for the party to choose from: the top-down approach and the bottom-up fix. Let's start with the top-down. This is the Obama model. One charismatic leader takes the reins, reframes the party, and brings everyone with them. Think FDR, Reagan, Obama. Sounds pretty great, right? A top-down fix means finding someone who can unite the factions, communicate clearly, and move the Overton window by sheer force of narrative. And very importantly, it has to be someone who represents the anger people feel towards the current system. Whether or not you like the vibes of it, there's power in that. When Obama ran in 2008, he brought in young voters, first-time voters, disillusioned voters. He built an organizing machine that reached every corner of the country, and he won. Most of those voters are still around, and more voted for Donald Trump than you might think. But governing is not campaigning. And without sustained pressure, even the best top-down approach will falter. The limitations of Obama's presidency weren't just about him, they were about a system not built to accommodate transformation without massive public demand. That's why the first thing this hypothetical Democratic majority will have to do is eliminate the filibuster. I know I already mentioned it once before in this video, and if you're still a little fuzzy on what it is, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to make an entire video about it. Okay, let's try and figure out who this person could be in 2028 with a tool that has never failed on YouTube: a tier list. This is a bad idea, I think. This part is unscripted. This is the first part of any video that I've made that's unscripted, and I've chosen an absolute minefield to be off the cuff for. Okay, low-key, I'm just gonna... Yeah, I don't think he can do that. I might need to look at the rules again, but I don't think he can do that. Who knows, 4 years is a long time, a lot could change. Gavin Newsom, he's my governor. I think on paper this guy works, but having lived with him for a while, he kind of sucks, and he's kind of scary, and I don't think he can win. B tier. Please don't hold me to this. This was a bad idea. Okay, Cory Booker, he just gave that speech, right? He gave that, the longest Senate floor speech, something like that. That was a cool stunt. He's like bloodthirsty for this job, I swear. But I think all senators are. B tier. I don't know what his sell is. I feel like a lot of political analysts will talk about having the hat or the slogan or the logo. I can't for the life of me think of what this guy's selling that 10 other people don't already have. But the speech was cool, so he stays in B tier. I feel like I follow this stuff pretty closely. I have no idea who this is. I'm gonna get flamed in the comments. Maybe I do, but I don't think I do. If this guy shows up on one more podcast, what's his name, Rahm Emanuel? Rahm Emanuel has a great track record in Washington. He's been a part of the history of quite a few other campaigns. This guy was behind the Obama campaign that we've been talking so highly about. But he's also, this guy doesn't have the sauce. He really does not have the sauce to be president. I have no other way of putting it other than that. This is Stephen A. Smith, right? I feel like a lot of people have been talking about Stephen A. Smith as a possible candidate. He's been talking a lot about it. It's like One Direction. Honestly, he's an outsider. Like, he checks a lot of these boxes for what I think a lot of people think of as someone who could be a charismatic, magnetic candidate. This guy's a real mystery box, but low-key, just on vibes, I'm gonna put him in A tier. I could honestly live to really regret that. Some of these I don't want to hit on yet just because I'm scared. J.B. Pritzker, the Democrat billionaire. He's very charismatic, but he's such an insider in the party. I have to put him in the same tier as Gavin Newsom. Slightly above, I guess, but these guys are not separate from what has happened, if there's any other way to put it. Uh-oh, John Fetterman. This guy is, I don't think he would make it through a campaign. Low-key, maybe that's a little mean, but I don't think he'd even make it through. This guy is churning through staff in his Senate office like crazy. There's a new crazy story about him every day. I think a couple years ago, maybe he had a shot. Okay, yeah, Ruben Gallego is a great Senate candidate. This guy is progressive, where I think a lot of voters are with him and they are able to see him as a lot more moderate on other issues like immigration, right? And he's been very outspoken in Congress. I think this guy's a sleeper pick. He's pretty new to Congress. This guy is able to wear the outsider badge. He could have a chance. I don't think he's super magnetic. I don't think he's an S-tier candidate by any means, but he could be a sleeper pick. Kamala Harris, low key. I mean, this is the pick that could really be anywhere on this list, right? Like, she'll have the most momentum behind her, but she also has, you know, the fact she lost, right? I still think she's gonna run for governor in California, in my state. I think she might just be my governor in about like 2 years. I mean, we're talking stay the course, right? Like, that's the line in this video. I can't think of a more emblematic candidate of stay the course than her. Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro is probably in every New York Times column about the 2028 race that exists out there. This guy is a favorite of the poli-sci bros because he has, again, like Newsom, he's got everything on paper, and he's a good speaker too. I gotta put him in A tier just because he might have sauce. Like, he very possibly could have sauce. You know, watch out. I think if Tim Walz was not running as vice president in the last campaign, he would actually have a really decent shot in 2028. But I think showing just how toothless he was when he was actually on the campaign trail and how horrible of a debater he is on the debate stage, which he'll claim himself, I just really don't see a world where he gets enough traction in a field this large to get out in front of everybody. Yeah, it's Wes Moore. To be honest, I don't know much about Wes Moore. I really don't know anything about him, and I'm pretty into this stuff. And if I don't know anything about Wes Moore, sorry. Man, I don't know, maybe he's good, but I haven't heard from him. So Buttigieg is tough, because on the one hand, he's the best communicator in the party, or one of the best in theory, right? But on the other hand, he was the transportation secretary at a time where planes were falling out of the sky. I think if he wasn't a cabinet official in the last administration, he'd really have a sell to him as an outsider. But all right, and our last two, I've been holding off on these two because I really don't know. I have a thought for where I'm gonna put both of them. Spoiler alert, they're going in the same category, I think. Yeah, we're just gonna do it. Here's my reasoning for putting both of these in S tier, right? These guys have sauce. They both have crazy sauce. I keep saying that, but if you know, I feel like you know, right? They are both in government, but they are able to wear this badge as an outsider within their own party, right? Andy Bashir, more to the center on certain things, but he has this working class draw. AOC also has a working class draw from sort of a different wing of the party, but both of them are able to communicate extremely well to the groups that they gravitate towards, or the groups that gravitate towards them, right? I just think right now, as of when I'm recording this, like May 16th, 2025, when I'm thinking about what the party wants, I think we should at the very least watch out for these two. And honestly, the 4 in A tier as well. I think my guys in B tier are gonna disappoint a lot more than the forums online seem to expect that they will, unfortunately. God, this is gonna age extremely poorly. Let's please get back to the video.
If someone emerged today, a true leader with a unifying vision and structural ambitions, there's a very real chance the party would follow. It happened before, and I think it could happen again. Ask around, there's a hunger for it. But banking on that kind of figure is a gamble. They might not show up at all. And waiting for them means still just waiting. So what about the other option? Now, The second technique the party could use to fix all of this is the bottom-up approach. This means movement building, grassroots candidates, primary challenges, and local wins. This approach doesn't rely on a single leader. It relies on coalitions, on people organizing in their own communities and running for school board, city council, state legislature. It's slower, messier, but arguably more sustainable. There are real examples of this having momentum. Dan Osborne in Nebraska ran as an independent mechanic and nearly unseated a Republican senator. In the 2024 election, in Nebraska, AOC unseated a powerful incumbent in a deep blue district. These are proof of concept stories. Bernie Sanders was recently asked about this during the Fighting Oligarchy tour. He encouraged people looking to get into public office to follow his lead and run as an independent who caucuses with the Democrats. For aspiring politicians in heavily red states like Nebraska, this could seriously help build up long-lasting majorities, not of Democrats, but progressives and populists. The 50-state solution we talked about from 2004 had some great ideas, but the party has a serious branding problem these days. Some would argue deathly. Approaching the same method but under independent monikers may be the best path forward in 2025. The challenge is that it takes time, and it faces resistance. The DNC has tried to blacklist those who work with challengers. Take David Hogg. He was recently elected the vice chair of the DNC, but he founded a group called Leaders We Deserve. They've raised over $20 million, and the group plans on spending in safe blue Democratic primaries against sitting House members by supporting younger, more progressive opponents. Under the current system, incumbents get protection. Resources flow to the center, and the media doesn't pay attention to local stories until it's too late. Under a proposal unveiled just the other week, national Democratic officials would be required to pledge neutrality in all primaries. During a call with members, the DNC chairman, Ken Martin, called for the DNC officials' neutrality to be codified in the party's rules and bylaws. This would effectively stop David Hogg's efforts entirely if he stays in the DNC. Now, all this comes at the same time a CNN poll found that 52% of Democrats believe their leaders were steering the party in the wrong direction. And this is what the party is focusing on right now. Stay the course, right? Still, despite the challenges, the strategy is how you build a new party inside the shell of the old one. You win local races, you push policy, you change the narrative. It's slow, but it can work. And it doesn't depend on a unicorn savior showing up on time. I feel like this is the answer in a lot of these videos, but the answer might lie somewhere in the middle. A hybrid fix, top-down and bottom-up. The idea here is that you can build the movement infrastructure and keep the door open for a leader to emerge who can channel it. Think FDR working with labor unions, LBJ and the civil rights movement. You need pressure and vision. Movements without access get ignored. Leaders without pressure get comfortable. This is where things get interesting, because if progressives keep winning local races and someone charismatic rises up from that world, you suddenly have a real shot at transformation. But the party can't just wait for that to happen. The work has to be done now. The organizing, the primaries, the messaging, the pressure campaigns. The point isn't to hope someone saves everything. The point is to build a movement strong enough that if someone wants to lead it, they have to earn it.